So like when it comes down to like, I mean, nobody gives a fuck about like us, but like the shit's really there in my opinion, so the EU can sue the big social media companies and get money. It's actually kind of fucked up too. The EU's kind of like really like that. They really do pass laws to sue American companies for fucking large ass amounts, tied up in litigation. But when they close, these American companies are like, okay, fine, here's $400 million, whatever. And it's like, yo, this is all shit that happens, and like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there's something about, like, there's something about this type of control that always hits red bells when you hear so much focus on, um, like the idea of race and stuff, like the idea of how much it's been amplified in these last few years. When I've been saying this a lot, but like they're sort of amplifying this idea that and focusing on our differences, and they're sort of turning us against each other, because they're protecting their own interests. They're protecting their own interests because if we start thinking about why we are in these positions we are in, we'll start realizing that these assholes have been robbing us blind for years. I mean, when you find out that Jeff Bezos hasn't paid like there's been years where Jeff Bezos didn't pay any taxes, period. And I know that he pays taxes in
Nah,
various
it
other
doesn't. It's fucked
avenues.
up. Nah, you're right. Fuck
And
corporate tax law.
but these
Yo,
motherfuckers
fuck
are
capital. Yo, hold
obviously.
up. On your states, fuck capital tax law. Y'all should be real. Y'all should go up to all of your politicians and be like, tax capital like it's wages and tax wages like it's capital. Y'all should just run that. Run that as a gauntlet, because wages are taxed at a higher rate than capital in the states, and that's weird because capital is not money you work for. It's just money you have that gains interest, and that's
Mhm.
taxed less than the money you work for. It's not the same in my country. I found that out. My accountant's like, you're an idiot. That's the states, and I'm like, fair enough. But that's a real thing. So that's really where it is. So it's
Well,
like
that's
being
why.
rich is just a privilege in your country, which is fucking weird.
Well, yeah, and that's where it comes down to, is the have and have nots. And it's like, when I say they're protecting their own interests by amplifying these our differences, like, I got in a little bit of I got, and you were there. I got into
I
a little
watched
bit
it.
of, yeah, with somebody, with LG, who is a fantastic rapper. I love what she does. I'm a fan, and it was, it's hard for me to even like talk about it. It was like something that deeply affected me, and the idea, and I didn't even bring up the idea of black on black crime. The chat did, and I just sort of threw it in there, and she lit up, and there was several things, but like specifically talking about black on black crime, I'm really glad I had that conversation. I'm really glad that she was patient with me, because I didn't realize that this is tied into that narrative of
Yeah.
painting a picture of the black community. But we do have to talk about the fact that there is crime that happens in these lower income
But yo,
places.
so let's talk about that shit. I
Right, right. Can I finish this real quick?
Yeah,
And
go
I
for it.
want to hear what you have to say, because this is, like when you look at like murder rates, like, brown people, Mexicans kill Mexicans, the most Mexicans. Black people kill the most black people. White people kill the most white people. But the through line in all of this is that it happens in lower socioeconomic areas. Now, is there white privilege? Yeah, I've seen it, especially being in an interracial marriage. Is there racism? Fuck yeah, I've seen it, especially being in an interracial marriage and a product of an interracial fucking relationship of my parents were interracial. So yeah, I realize that these things happen, but I also recognize that it's really an idea of who's not getting the money and who is getting the money. And when you see fucking assholes like Jeff Bezos riding their cock into outer space, and then thanking all his workers and the people who bought that stuff for sending him up, like, it's fucking disgusting, because you have this guy fucking touting BLM and pride and all this shit, while he treats his workers like shit. He doesn't pay anything in taxes, and then he fucking rides his cock into outer space and rubs it and comes all over us, fucking rubbing it in our faces. So I think that we're facing more of a have and have not situation, rather than a fucking bunch of people who hate black people and a bunch of and Mexicans and stuff. And again, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist, but I'm saying that this shit is amplified, and because these people are protecting their own interests and protecting their wallet and keeping us busy fighting each other instead of fighting them and fucking questioning power and we're questioning ourselves instead of questioning the motherfuckers who's supposed to be working for us. So that's that, and that's the shit that I failed to convey. Uh, to
I'm gonna be real with you. You actually conveyed all of those points. You did.
Oh, okay.
It's just
I don't
that,
remember it. I felt terrible. I was
Mike,
all.
I want to just say, I have had so many of those conversations in my life that affected me just as deeply.
Yeah.
They were just all off cam. And then sometimes I would say some dumbass shit on the internet. My God, my first year of YouTube is reviewing hip hop as a white boy, middle class now. I come from poverty and I went to a black high school and I thought those were credentials, but I'm in Montreal. Nothing against credentials, okay?
Nothing.
And I went on the internet and talked my shit, and people put, this is before the YouTube censors on the comments. I got put through the ringer a few times. But I also got schooled by so many different people every time I tried to come into these conversations, and it got me questioning shit. A lot of shit, right? I'm a white rapper. Extra like weight on this question, right? Like, what does it all mean? So what does being an ally mean? What do all these things mean, right? First thing is privilege. I want to just touch that one up quick, because the reality is all white privilege is less anxiety in life. You have the time to think about things because you're not worried about dying. And that's something that I do not think most people really understand, and it took me the better part of a decade to come to that conclusion. But when you talk to women about their experiences at night walking around the streets, and this one I find is like an easier one, they fear rape, they fear men. I just watched in the local community group a bunch of women talk about the same two guys running around my neighborhood scaring the shit out of them. As a man, I've never felt that shit. I walk around, I'm not even like, I look like I'm stronger than I am kind of thing when I'm out and about. So like, never had that. As I understand it, if you're black and you see the 5-0s, the police, your experience is mad different than mine. Because, in black communities, I've heard that people are given police training, how to deal with police. Things that, imagine all of these extra factors. You go to work, now you got to speak politely. I found out recently that if you walk into corporate America and be dropping words with this kind of slang and be spitting in a way that ain't proper, motherfuckers be not giving you as much monies in situations. And that's a fact in Montreal, Quebec for myself. So like, what I'm saying is all these extra things that you have to think about because you're not the right societally accepted norms that are preached about on the internet add pressure onto your life that make you be unable to have the same level of common sense and time as a person who's not stressed. So my walk becomes philosophy about the universe. Other people's walks might just be, I'm trying to stay alive and get home. I hope I see my family when I get there. That's white privilege. I don't think people explain it like that, but that's all it is. That time you have, that stacks over a decade, coming up with business plans, proposals, all this shit, while other people is just trying to like stay alive and shit. With all that being said, you add in shit like redlining, where literally it affects literacy rates in education. So you have a bunch of white people on the internet judging a bunch of kids who were never given history books for not knowing shit, who were never taught the same math for being not able to keep up, who were never even given the same English books for being illiterate and unable to compose a sentence with the same grammar. That's privilege. So you start stacking all that shit up, and then the only people who ever say the words black on black crime all have my skin color for some reason. That's fucking weird, right? Nobody else says it.
I know a lot. I know of a lot of black people.
I mean, run the numbers, and it's going to end up.
But actually, the person in chat who even said black on black crime is
Bro, I guarantee you, and I would put my entire professional reputation, if you ran the numbers on this, 90% of the people use the term.
I understand. And look, I'm not trying to fight that notion.
So it's I
don't want to even say black on black crime.
So while you're like actually correct on everything you're saying, I'm also right on all the things I said. And sometimes by saying some of the things you put forward in that conversation, it diminishes everything I said, because the focus goes on to some shit that's like facts. Like, white people kill more white people. It's just normal. That shouldn't be part of the conversation. Or when you take the death of a George Floyd, the fact is, it's like who like you focused on the crime, bro. That's like, just for the fact, never do that. That's like a way to get clipped. Whether or not you fully agree with that, just as a media dude, man, just in this world, it's like, you need to understand that by saying that, like, bro, there's no context that it makes sense that the cops, whose job is supposed to be to enforce the laws, is killing people. Frankly, the whole police system's whack, right? Like, it just is. So by going and talking about the fact, the cop committed a crime at level 10 and the man committed a crime at level 0.3. Frankly, it was the smallest crime I've ever heard of. So, like, I didn't even counterfeit 20. Like, bro, I've done worse crime. Not saying what, but in my life, I've been caught shoplifting higher amounts. Okay, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not dead.
And he didn't deserve to die either.
So but when you mention it, it's like, why? That's what people are wondering. Because the fact is, the whole conversation should be the police system's fucked up. And that is like, there's no reason to go to the other places if the goal is to create systemic change. Otherwise, so this is where I agree with you. I think the government has politicized race, but I think that the instrument they're doing it is coded language or racism. And a lot of people that believe that they're being allies are accidentally using a lot of coded racist language because it logically makes sense. But I've watched logic, because, man, I'm in a Montreal where there's a lot of conversations of multiple communities that I have access to. I have interviewed countless people that grew up in inner cities. Well, not countless. It's like 40, 50. But people who grew up in inner cities, both in Canada and across America. And you know what? It didn't matter where they grew up. The story there were way too many parallels, right? So it starts to show like, there might be some issues where it's having the side conversations that is a huger part of the problem, because it stops the people trying to tell their story from being able to properly tell their story. Because now we're focusing on some weird shit. Like when you're watching a Facebook debate and one man's is using logistical arguments to distract from the bigger message of the next man's. And that's how it ends up getting perceived. So you're never wrong with these points is the problem. So they are all legitimate points. But like, why are we talking about that when like there's way more relevant points to be focusing on? I believe that's what she was trying to convey to you in those moments.
Yeah, and you know what? That was conveyed. And